So welcome back after the lunch. So we are all set to start with the third and final session of the fourth day. So before I start the final session, I would like to say that in the contemporary scenario, the cardinal point is to provide substantial focus on the important concern of sustainability in tourism and hospitality business. As the world's natural resource endowments are limited, the world is striving for solutions in the domains of energy, water, alternate building materials, resource redeployment, and sustainable livelihoods as well. While focusing on tourism and hospitality industry, it is a large deployer of natural and created resources. The resource person of this session will discourse at length on future paradigms of sustainable tourism and hospitality business in India. Our distinguished speaker does not need any introduction, as he is a renowned figure in the academic field of tourism. So it is indeed my great privilege and honor to welcome Professor Sampath Kumar Swain to this 1 week online Atal FDP. Welcome to the event, sir. Professor Swain is currently the head Department of Tourism Studies, Pondicherry University. His career spans over 20 years. He has made significant contributions to teaching, training, and research in tourism academia. Professor Swain completed his Bachelor of Arts in Economics, then completed his Master in Tourism Administration and PhD in Tourism Management, all from Utkal University, Orissa. After this, he obtained his D.Litt in Tourism from Utkal University. Further, he joined Department of Tourism Studies, Pondicherry University. Professor Swain has a rich industry as well as teaching experience in the tourism industry. He has participated in a faculty development program at IIM Indore. He is a member of Board of Studies in Madurai, Kamaraj University, Madurai, Avinash Lingam University, Coimbatore, Lady Dock College, Madurai, and Pondicherry University, Puducherry, and he has guided students from IGNOU as well. Professor Sampath Swain has published several papers in reputed national and international journals, authored many books on tourism, guided a number of research scholars. Further, he has completed a number of projects on tourism sponsored by ICSSR and UGC New Delhi. Besides teaching, he has also performed the administrative responsibilities in the government and quasi-government agencies in different capacities as Director Planning and Development, Coordinator of IQAC and NAC, and Register in Charge. His area of specialization comprises sustainable tourism, ecotourism, alternative tourism, responsible tourism, community-based tourism, travel agency business, tourism research methods. So we are really obliged to have you, sir, on our event, and we hope that all of us will be highly enriched with your vast knowledge and experience. So with this brief introduction, I would like to welcome sir once again and request him to continue with the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Debnath. And I'm extremely thankful to Professor Himanshu Bhushan Raut and his very energetic and dynamic team for coordinating this wonderful sponsored program by AICT. I must congratulate him for bringing this particular FDP program to Mizoram University. At the same time, he has created a wonderful platform for all the resource persons and the participants to learn each other mutually on varied subjects, cutting across economic, sociology, psychology, commerce, management, all are related to the entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial ability of the future managers or future leaders. I did not have any choice when I received the theme of the discussion from Dr. Himanshu, and I readily accepted it because it is the wisdom of Dr. Himanshu narrowed down to a topic for me to deliberate upon and discuss with all of you, interact, I must say. I will share the slide. I will share the slide. You need not, because the slide is there, because let the slide may not be an obstruction between you and the participants. Just a minute, just a minute. That is it. Maybe the call is coming from your side. Okay. So, just a minute. The ringtone is coming from your side, I think. Okay. So, anyway, because let me share my first exposure to the paradigm of sustainable tourism way back in 1993, when I finished my when I was about to finish my Master of Tourism Administration program. I chose the topic of sustainable tourism development in Puri Konarak Marine Drive in Orissa, because that was the time when the government of Orissa, led by late Biju Patnaik, the Chief Minister of Orissa, who is a visionary leader, he wanted to make a vast stretch of 35 kilometers coastline from Puri to Konarak as different destination competing Goa, Kovalam, Sindhudurga, and Andaman. So this can be one of the finest beach tourism destinations in the world. So that point of time, the project report was handed over to Tata Consultancy Services, and they submitted the report. I had the opportunity to have the access to the report through my acquaintances in the office. I read the report. That stimulated and provoked me to undertake an empirical study immediately after the report. When the report was not unveiled, report was not brought to the public notice, and it was not aired. That point of time, I thought, let me take a survey, primary survey, with the community members, those who are the residents of the Puri Konarak Marine Drive, mostly the villagers. That point of time, I was a beginner, novice. I did not have much idea, much guidance how to collect the data. But vaguely, I prepared a questionnaire and I visited the Puri Konarak Marine Drive. I spent almost 7 to 8 days, and the sample size was 150. You will be surprised to know I only use the percentage, that is called histogram and pie chart. That the findings of the study, let me share with all of you, without knowing what is sustainable development and sustainable tourism development. I entered into the room of the Viva and presented the report to the external examiner. The first question to the external examiner to me was, what do you mean by sustainable development? Because my project report submission and the definition of sustainable tourism, it was a gap of 7 years. Because by then I did not know the universal definition of sustainable development defined by United Nations as per the Brundtland Commission report, Our Common Future. So I started answering, being a student of economics, because I started answering. My answer was development which should continue without having any interruption. The examiner did not approve my answer. Examiner started asking another question to me associated with the answer. You have only answered 10 to 15%. Another 85% of the answers is yet to be given by you. Then I said, sir, I'm helpless. I may not be able to answer. Though I have mentioned the meaning of the development, sustainable development in the report. Then he asked me, okay, you turn the page and read the definition of the sustainable tourism, sustainable development definition. I read development that meets the need of the present without compromising the ability of the future generation into their own needs. The definition defined by none other than the former Prime Minister of Norway, Brundtland. That is why the definition, the called Brundtland definition, in the report of our common future. Without taking much of the time, let me take back what was the necessity, what was the urgency, what was the emergency of having a committee to introspect and prepare the report on sustainable development, which will be the guiding principle and guiding force for all the countries in the world. Because all of you must be knowing about the industrialization which started taking place in the 16th, 17th century in a very big way in Western Europe and in Northern America and some countries in the world, but mostly it was concentrated in Western Europe and Northern America. Because that was the time the industries were busy in producing in mass scale. That is called the massive production. Without taking into account, without taking into consideration how much would be consumed, who would be consumed, who would consume, and to what extent these productions will be lying in the warehouses, and what is the supply chain, how the goods and commodities will be transported to the market, what is the size of the market, and who are the buyers and sellers of the market. Without foreseeing, without visualizing, without anticipating, producers started producing the product by exploiting the vast natural resources. Dear friends, Dr. Debnath, who introduced me, he used a sentence in the beginning. Resources are scarce, resources are limited, resources cannot be abundant. But when I studied economics in 87, 88, 89, that point of time our teachers used to tell us resources are abundant, resources are unlimited, resources are vast. It is the country to use the technology and process to prepare the finished product or the final products so that the development can be accelerated and the country can reach a big growth. Growth means quantity, development is quality. I'll get back to it a little later. So my perception, or you may say my understanding, which registered in my mind, did not go after listening, after reading the Sustainable Development Report by Brundtland, because I have been doing this particular research, area of research for the last, you may say, 25 years. So my postdoctoral research is also on sustainable tourism development. And my major research projects are based on sustainable, responsible ecotourism. And if you see the profile of my publications, 75 to 80% of my papers are based on alternative tourism, mostly alternative tourism. Yeah, because alternative tourism is related to sustainable development. So therefore, I must thank Professor Himanshu for having given me the mandate of speaking on sustainable development. Otherwise, I would have landed up in speaking entrepreneurship. What is the meaning of entrepreneur? Who is the entrepreneur? What are the roles and functions of entrepreneur? Who can be an entrepreneur? Who cannot be an entrepreneur? But I am going to relate it towards in the course of my presentation. Because who is going to be a responsible tourism leader? That I'll get back to later. So therefore, I was listening to the conversation of Professor Nimit Chaudhary yesterday. He rightly pointed about the wealth creation, because every individual, every society, every nation, they are all committed to developing or creating wealth for themselves, for others, for the nation. So wealth creation is the whole sole objective of a country. How the wealth can be created? Because it is the country's policy, programs, planning that would guide and facilitate for the wealth creation. But my question is, while creating wealth or while creating the assets of the country should not land up, the country should not face the problem of the resource crunch. Because no, there are many factors which are responsible for consumption of the resources or exploitation of the resources unmindfully, unjudiciously, without having any speculation. One of the factors responsible is our huge population growth. Another factor is responsible is the uneven migration, or you can say mobilization of the people from rural area to urban areas, because this is very skewed. No? Now the resource consumption and resource production, there is a disequilibrium between these two. When there is a disequilibrium between the two, I must say, because this particular workshop would certainly answer how to shrink the disequilibrium, how to reduce the disequilibrium. That is the issue like that. With this brief introduction, because why tourism? Because all of you must be knowing tourism is a medium through which the economy of the country can be accelerated, can be developed. Economy of the country, the economic condition of the country can be improved upon. The quality of the life of the people can be changed, and country can keep pace with the development of the developed countries. Because all of you must be knowing about developing countries, developed countries, developing countries, least developed countries, and third world countries, underdeveloped countries, backward countries, developing countries. So India comes under the developing countries. Because why India is under the India is a developing country? Because India is blossoming. The country's economy is unfolding in a manifold way. So the economy is developing. We are in the developing stage. We have not reached at the saturation stage the way Japan has reached, UK has reached, Germany has reached, France has reached, US has reached, many developed countries, because they are no longer dependent on the consumption of the domestic. They are no longer dependent on the domestic consumption. They largely depend on the external consumptions. Therefore, they are balance of payment. So their receipt is more than the payments. So that they are developed. They export more. The export exceeds the import, and they export all the finished products. And all developing countries, underdeveloped countries, backward countries, third world countries, they all import the finished products from there. When they import, they pay. When they pay, there will be huge leakages. When there will be huge leakages, certainly the GDP growth or national income will not grow. Sometimes it may be marginally negative or marginally positive. So therefore, what I would like to tell all of you is that now the country has to select, or country has to make choice of tourism, agriculture, farming, textile, horticulture, pisciculture, mines, mineral, steel product industry, aluminium industry. Which one the economy system will select? The economy system will select the best one depending on the resources. Certainly the selection of that particular area of the production would yield maximum dividends and benefits to the country, so that country's external payment would be reduced and external receipt will be more. So what I'm trying to tell all of you is that, because this requires a sector which can address to the problem of the external payment, that is called tourism. You take the example of all the developing countries, underdeveloped countries like in Africa. Developing countries, you may take Brazil, India, South Africa, Argentina. You may take the example of because Israel is a developed country, but you may say developing country. So similarly, the least developed countries and backward countries, because these are the countries, because they don't have resources, they have huge resources, but they don't have technological know-how to make use of the resources. So therefore, tourism has come to them as a rescue, has come to them as a savior. Tourism has come to them as an instrument through which, or as a medium or as means through which, so their balance of payment deficit can be mitigated, can be addressed. So their foreign exchange reserve ratio would be more, because tourism is an invisible export industry. This industry does not physically export anything to the world, but whereas nevertheless the industry receives huge foreign exchange which can go to the country's foreign exchange account. So with this, let me tell you, if this is the fact, then development is the only option. We have no choice but to resort to the development. But what type of development? Because let me tell you, because development is a word derived from the economics. It has come latter part of the, after the Great Depression in 1930, when macroeconomic concept came. James Keynes, because he is the propounder of the macroeconomics, because in 1930, the whole world witnessed the Great Depression, 1929 and 30. President Roosevelt of the USA had no choice but to declare the economic emergency. So depression is a situation, dear friends, where it's a deflationary situation where there will be no sales, and because people will not have purchasing power, they don't have ability to buy, there will be no demand. If the government will take fiscal measure or monetary measure, even then the demand cannot be stimulated. Demand cannot be induced. All the economy, all the fiscal measure, monetary measures, all the measures failed miserably in creating demand, either in a backward demand or forward demand, or you will say downstream demand or upstream demand. So demand could not be created in 1929-30. So therefore, because why I'm trying to tell you, that was the beginning of the concept of the discussion on how development can be sustainable, how economic development can be sustainable. Though, because the silent spring that I will show you in my PPT, subsequently in 1972 human conference in Stockholm on human and environment, International Union for Conservation of Nature, there was a conference in 1980. 1987, this Brundtland Commission brought out with a report of sustainable development. Prior to that, from 1930 to 1987, it's about 6 decades. The whole world was misguided and might was right. Any country wished to exploit any country in any way, they could be able to do it. And the country, without knowing anything, they started exploiting the natural resources, and that include water, that include land, that include trees, that include all our natural endowments, including the air, and you may say mines, minerals, bauxite, manganese, I don't know, or whatever you may say. They started exploiting that much without visualizing that one day all those resources would be exhausted, and because country would have no option but to put a stop to the exploitation of the resources. So therefore, do we need development, lopsided development, or do we need development to continue forever? Whatever development we need development, one-sided development or inclusive development, or you want holistic development, integrated development, or you want development which will be taking care of the needs and wants of the people of all over the world. So that, dear friends, development is a concept which is not restricted to developed countries only, because one of the days any impacts of USA could be able to restrict it to the USA. If USA economy was down, because the Great Depression of 1929 could not make much impact in Asian continent or Asia Pacific continent. But today, because last 20 years, I must say from the beginning of the new millennium, I'll get back to you the Millennium Development Goals of the United Nations, and the Millennium Development Goals have formulated the Sustainable Development Goals. I'll get back to you. Last 20 years, am I right? The growth, economic development is a chronic problem. Every 5 to 6 years, our business cycle is getting imbalance. Because almost all of you must be knowing there is a business cycle. There is a inflation, deflation, and a slump, then boom. Okay, there is a line that is called stability line. So the curve will go up and down, but each economic system, each country puts all their efforts and energy not to allow the curve to go down the stability line, and then the economy will be grounded, the economy will break down, and once economy breaks down and gets grounded, how difficult it is to activate, because you can give the example of a vehicle, you give the example of your health, because unless you do yoga, unless you ensure your discipline of the life, that is the life management. All right, if somebody will come, somebody will suffer from, or somebody will have some chronic diseases, how difficult it is to bring back your body system or metabolism to the normal situation. This is a brief introduction with this. Let me share a couple of slides with all of you, so that my presentation will be very organized. Otherwise, I will start speaking from one mind. And with due respect to all, I will get the questions in the end. And if you have any questions, you please put in the chat box. So the anchor will consolidate it and ask the question to me. I am happy to answer to the best of my ability. I may not be knowing the correct answer of the correct question, but I'll try my best to defend the answer which I am going to give you. This is the title of the presentation, Future Paradigms of Sustainable Tourism and Hospitality Business in India. Because I am a researcher, I don't take any word casually. Am I right? Future paradigms, because Dr. Himanshu must have thought of using paradigms instead of paradigms of sustainable tourism and hospitality business in India. Clear? So because development should be futuristic, sustainable is for future. Because many of you may not be knowing, because sustainable means it will sustain. It will not sustain temporarily. It will not sustain for present. It will sustain forever or for posterity. But because tourism is a business, tourism is an industry, tourism is a sector, tourism is a field, because tourism is such an industry, such a sector, the chance of lopsided the chance of making unsustainable is extremely high. I always say tourism is a brakeless vehicle. If you don't put the brake to the tourism will certainly the country will meet an accident. Because when you hear about the tourism, oh, such a wonderful word, wonderful, because everybody is beating their own drums. Yes, tourism can bring massive development. Tourism can bring massive transformation of the life, people, economy. But at the same time, tourism can also create a lot of threats, and it can cause irreparable damage. Irreparable damage. The damage cannot be repaired. It is a permanent damage. It is a permanent loss to the ecology, loss to the flora, fauna, loss to the habitation, and loss to the human life. I will give a number of examples to all of you. There is hospitality business in India. Clear? Because Dr. Himanshu, because his area of interest is hospitality, so he has linked tourism to hospitality, because the identity of the tourism is hospitality. The tourism business can thrive, can make prosper when there is a hospitality, friendliness, warmth. And broadly we understand hospitality encompasses the accommodation and the guest and host receptions. How a guest is received, how the host is prepared to receive the guest with warmth, with open arm. The smile should be visible. The smile should communicate. The guest is opening the arms to embrace the guest to the society. So therefore, this is a very interesting topic. I must admire, I must accept, I must thank, I must respect the organizer for giving this topic to me. But I have traveling, it leaves you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller. This is Ibn Battuta, of the medieval traveler, whom we refer to like Marco Polo, Ibn Battuta, Benjamin of Tudela. Ibn Battuta was a great traveler, great traveler. Had they not traveled, had they not discovered, probably there would not have been any existence of the tourism today. Thanks to Marco Polo, who spent 27 years. Thanks to Columbus. So therefore, because the title of the program is Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Atal FDP program, because so that let me devote this slide to the great soul of India, because Atal Bihari Vajpayee was a political entrepreneur. He had tremendous enterprising ability, and he could organize the Jan Sangha to Bharatiya Janata Party, and he could be able to come to the position of Prime Minister after 5 decades of his struggle in the political life. So my pranam to Atal Bihari Vajpayee for this particular program, FDP. So this, our aim may be as high as endless, but we have a resolve in our mind, work hand in hand for victory. So this is the title of the quote and unquote by Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee. But I thought my presentation would not complete if I don't mention the name of Peter Drucker, because I heard, I listened to Professor Panda from Northeastern University. He mentioned about Mother India and Market India. Am I right? So, and he mentioned about Joseph Schumpeter. But I have never come across till today. I don't know if Professor Anjana Swami might have referred to Peter Drucker. Am I right? Because no, when we talk about entrepreneurship, innovation, invention, certainly the great management guru, modern management thinker, Peter Drucker must be mentioned. And he has done extensive work on the innovation and entrepreneurship. Subsequently, we are proud of Professor C.K. Prahalad. So C.K. Prahalad was one who is no more, who passed away in 2010. He died of heart attack, massive heart attack. So I am a great admirer of C.K. Prahalad. I have read many of his published works, including books and research papers. So C.K. Prahalad, you know, he is one who propagated the concept of bottom of the pyramid, co-creation, ecosystem, collaboration, cooperation, and fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. Because no, the book which he has written, I request all of you should own the book.
Yes.
Therefore, how fortune lies in the bottom of the pyramid. If there is a pyramid,
Excuse me, sir.
if that is the bottom of the pyramid, certainly if you come to the bottom of the pyramid, you see crores and crores of the people, those who have the aspiration to buy, those who have aspiration to enjoy, those who have aspiration to experience and learn, they are unfortunate, they are deprived of enjoying it. Exactly what C.K. Prahalad did about the Ginger Hotel, all the low-cost airlines, the Ginger hotels.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes. Yes, Himanshuji, please.
Sir, can you make the PPT full screen?
Okay, I'll do it.
Sir, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Now? Is it
Yes,
okay?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I am not able to see the total screen because monitor box is coming, no? Dialog box. Anyway, no problem. So, what I am trying to tell you about C.K. Prahalad is, because it was C.K. Prahalad who brought the concept of low-cost airlines, low-cost travel, and low-cost accommodation, for which the Tata Group got guided by his guidance, because he was a consultant to Tata Indian Hotel Company, and they started investing a lot on Ginger Hotel. Today, the success story of the C.K. Prahalad's bottom of the pyramid is the Ginger Hotel. Clear? So therefore, this is a brief background which I was trying to tell you about how Peter Drucker, C.K. Prahalad, they contributed towards the entrepreneurship, innovation of the business in general, and the business in service sector in particular. So this particular definition which I have already mentioned about you, because when we start discussing about sustainable tourism, certainly we have to mention the definition of sustainable development, because this becomes the Bible, Gita, Quran, Tripitaka, or you can say anything, any holy text. This is just like the Gayatri mantras. Om Bhur Bhuvaswa Tat Savitur Varenam Bhargo Devo Sadimai Dhiyo Yona Prachodaya. Because when you start your day, you are expected to recite the Gayatri mantras, so that you take blessings from the Almighty God, that let your day to be more peaceful and more happier and more enjoyable, more meaningful, more productive. So like that, when you start discussing about development, perhaps you should not ignore the development definition or development meaning given by the World Commission on Environment and Development, headed by Brundtland, that is called Brundtland Commission, Our Common Future. Dear friends, let me tell you, what do we mean by development? Because many of you must be knowing if a country will have huge airports, huge seaports, the country will have wonderful motorable roads, country will have skyscrapers, buildings, country will have massive educational institutions. They are not true indicators of the development. Let me tell you frankly. Because if you take the example of Human Development Index, am I right, or health and education, so certainly physical infrastructure is essential, and physical infrastructure reflects or symbolizes the quantum of development of a country. At the same time, development is invisible. We want development, how the quality of the life of the people improves from one condition to another condition, how an individual leads the life from one condition of life to another condition of life that is better life. Because for example, if a person does not have a toilet, if a family does not have toilet, if a family does not have the potable drinking water, if family does not have a two-wheeler or a cycle or a pakka house, because the life expectancy, there will be a threat to the life of the individual. This is the way you may try to connect what is the life expectancy of the individual and how development can contribute to extend the life expectancy of the individual. When I was a student studying in class 7, and I owned a general knowledge book, I still remember the life expectancy of the Indian was only 27 years. I'm talking about in 1982 or 83, 82 probably. The life expectancy of the Indian was 27 years. So when people don't live more than 27 years, then the question comes how development could make difference in the quality of the life of the human being or the individuals who could not live their life beyond 27 years. And they die of pandemic, like one pandemic we experience now. There were many pandemic which are rooted out, which have been eliminated from the world. So they are almost arrested. You may say polio, you may say many other viruses. You know? Typhoid is still there, but it is under control. But many people died of typhoid. Many people died of cholera. Many people died of malaria. Because I belong to the state where mosquito net is given a gift to the girl at the time of the marriage. Because when parents think of giving any gift to the girl, no, the bride, that point of time, there must be a mosquito net, a couple of mosquito nets. There must be a mosquito net for in-laws, there must be a mosquito net for other family members and for themselves. Why I'm trying to tell to all of you that because malaria was a deadly disease which killed millions and millions of the people. So that was the reason for which the life expectancy could not be lengthened beyond 27 years. Today, what is the life expectancy? Almost 65 to 66 years. And that India could be able to achieve in a span of how many years? You tell me, in a span of 40 years. India could be able to shift the life expectancy from 27 years to 65 years in a span of 4 decades. How it has happened? How it has happened? It has happened because of the development. Development in our medicines, development in hospitals, and at the same time, the availability of the doctors, the communications. So therefore, that is called development. And development is not that, because exactly the definition speaks about the way the development happens in many countries in the world. They only look at let us enjoy the present moment. If water is available, let us exhaust it. Let us explore the water as much as possible from the ground, so that we can at least survive. Who is seeing the future? Who knows future will come? Am I right? Without looking at it, now many cities, water table has been depleted to such a level, probably many of the borewells will be out of order. And you take the example of many cities in Karnataka, Vidarbha, in Maharashtra, and some of the districts in Telangana, some of the districts in Odisha. Am I right? Mostly the central India, you may say. Central India, central western India. No, these are the pockets of India which has acute water shortage in the summer, for which the government started evolving the mechanism of water harvesting and rainwater harvesting, rooftop water harvesting, then watershed management, then recycling, so many things, and that I'll get back to you. So therefore, why government has taken a decision? Government has taken a decision after 1987. Let me tell you, because 1987 has created an awakening in the minds of the leaders of the countries in the world. Yes, otherwise the days are numbered. We are going to meet a huge calamity, huge crisis, huge disaster, for which 1991, the whole world met in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. That is called Earth Summit. So in between, third Earth Summit happened, second Earth Summit and third Earth Summit. Because the Earth Summit is related to tourism, that I'll get back to you later, like a local agenda 21. Okay, so therefore, development which meets the needs of the current generation without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. If we adopt any form of development which does not take care of the needs of the future, which does not fulfill the criteria of development, which is not the development, which is destruction. Development which can bring destruction to the future generation. Therefore, development should not lead to destruction. Development should lead to creation. Development should lead to lengthen the life expectancy of the people. Development should bring about the changes in the quality of the life. And tourism is a form of development which may create threat to the future generation, the way destinations have opened the gates, opened the doors, opened the windows of the tourists to come, because many countries, they have no choice but to embrace tourism, invite tourism, or welcome tourists to visit. Otherwise, the economy will be grounded. People may not be able to buy any other products because 30 to 40% of the GDP of those countries get contributed from the tourism revenue. When tourism is an important or significant engine of economic growth. When tourism determines the economy of a country, and the purchasing power of the people of the country depends on the tourism expenditure, tourism revenue. So that question arises. The country, the policymakers, the planners, thinkers, the captains of the country should come forward to save resources for the tourism. So if resources are saved, tourism will thrive, tourism will continue. Therefore, yesterday, Professor Nimi Chaudhary brought a couple of wonderful case studies, successful case studies, micro entrepreneurs, we call them angel entrepreneurs, those who start, or you can say startup companies, because the whole idea of promoting this small scale tourism is that it will be compatible with the resource available at the place. I must say, no destination as a researcher, as a student of tourism, I must say no destination is prepared to invite mass tourists in the world. Forget about the Gold Coast in Australia, or Mediterranean Sea, or Bermuda Islands, any other, you say the Hawaii Islands, whatever destination you may say, no destination can be or is prepared to allow the tourists come in mass scale to, at a point of time or over the periods of the time, resources cannot support. Resources cannot meet their demands. So therefore, the development model which is required to be adopted for tourism is a sustainable development. Development which must continue, which must ensure balance, which must have a compatibility with the resources. Resource should provide to the present tourist as well as future tourist. Dear friends, because when you add the tourism, tourism is a business. When you talk about tourism, the business of tourism comes. Because when business of tourism comes, then demand supply will come. The satisfaction, question of satisfaction come. Loyalty will come. Branding will come. Am I right? And a tourism entrepreneur can only survive when the guest leaves the premises satisfied. Therefore, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru said once in 1952, welcome a tourist, sends back a friend. But he said in a different context, because that was the point of time India had only 50,000 foreign tourists in India. And the whole idea of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was to send the tourists back home with happiness so that they can recommend the tourists to come back. Today, after a gap of 70 years, now we have to introspect. We should modify the approach of sending the tourists back home in a responsible manner. Let them propagate, let them educate their fellow friends whom they are going to recommend, or they will recommend to visit, how they would be responsible when they visit to the destinations. So these are some of the this particular slide which I have already mentioned in advance. Rachel Carson Silent Spring 62. That was the eye opener, and that changed the perspective of the development in the world. Because if you read the Silent Spring report, that was the time all developed countries were busy in using fertilizers and pesticides to achieve the bumper crop. So wheat, paddy, or any other crops should not get damaged by insects. So they started using pesticides and fertilizers. So there will be mass productions. When there will be mass productions, then there will be mass destructions, because USA started destroying the wheat by throwing the wheat into the sea in order to ensure the balance of the productions. So the balance of the demand, so the demand will not decrease, so supply will be more. If the demand will decrease, then the farmer will not produce. What is the point? That is exactly about the Silent Spring. You know, what is the point of producing more and destroying it? So therefore, this is about the Silent Spring, and these are some of the things which, with the possibility of the time, but I will share the slide with the organizer. You may take it and read it, because all of you are teachers, and you should not understand tourism from a narrow perspective. You should always look at tourism from a very broader perspective, from social aspect, from technological aspect, from economic aspect, from ecological aspect, from policy aspect, from demographic aspect, from legal aspect. Am I right? And you try to link the tourism with all other subjects, because tourism is an interdisciplinary subject. So these are some of the breakthroughs in the sustainable development. When you talk 1968, the Club of Rome, 72, because Club of Rome, they started thinking about the development, how development would be sustainable, and the release of the limit to growth. This is the outcome of the conference of Stockholm about the Human and Development. Then 84, the World Commission on Environment and Development. I missed 1982, International Union for Conservation of Nature. That is called International Congress, that is on nature. Then 87, the Reach of a Common Future, which I've already told you. And 82, the Earth Summit Rio Declaration, where tourism is connected to the local agenda 21. So the World Summit on Sustainable Development, even in 2012, also the Earth Summit was there. We are waiting for another World Summit in 2022. So broadly, I have summarized all the milestones of sustainable development. What are the paradigm shift? Paradigm shift means it is a phenomenal shift. It is a shift, is a remarkable shift. All right, it is a noticeable shift. All right. So resource conservation to resource creation. Because gone are the days in the initial revelation we are talking about resource exploitation. Then after 62, Silent Spring, resource conservation. Now we are in the resource creation. How we can create resources? Top down to bottom up approach. Earlier, policies and programs and plannings were imposed because community had no choice, villagers had no choice, or people, those who were the beneficiaries of the policies, had no voice to raise. There were no forums to put for their complaints and grievances. Today, now any policy and programs formulated by the government, regardless of their economic system, I don't know about China or any other like Cuba. Cuba has opened up, but bottom-up approach is the ultimate. Because what is pro-people, what is welfare for the people, what is beneficial for the people, what policy can make changes to the lives of the people, that will be the policy and program, that is called bottom-up approach. Now collecting, fighting for conservation. Now it is not the conservation is only restricted to the Department of Forest or Department of Animal Husbandry, Department of Environment and Ecology. It is the collective responsibilities and duties. All human race, regardless of our strength, regardless of our ability, we need to provide our collective ideas, collective thoughts. We may give a man hour physically, or we may give a small idea that can bring big changes to the conservation. Because many people must be knowing about there are small marginal farmers in the tribal areas. How are they going to arrest the water, stream waters? Because there are running waters which are coming from the streams. Because they are very privileged and fortunate. And how they are going to arrest the water, how they are going to reserve the water, how they are allowing the water to get percolated, and how they are planting the trees, so that they are planting those trees which can hold the rainwater. And there are trees, because India had a distress decision to plant the Casuarina trees, eucalyptus trees, in the early 60s and 70s in the coast of India. That was a disastrous, let me tell you frankly, because this kind of varieties of trees, they, instead of holding the water, they started consuming the water that much. That means the water table of that area gets depleted. So no change of issue which was figured at Stockholm. So therefore, we'll go to the next slide. These are some of the 17 sustainable development goals, because no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable clean energy, decent work, economic growth, industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduced inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice, strong instructions, partnership to achieve the goal. Dear friends, all right, you may add a couple of more goals in addition to the 17 goals. But what I see, almost all goals which are yet to be achieved, because goal is always something to be achievable, which can be achievable, which can be achieved, which can be targeted, which can be hit on when the country is prepared. So poverty is the creation of ours. God has never given birth to anyone as poor. Let me tell you frankly. You can take the example of Swami Ramdev. You can take the example of Dhirubhai Ambani. You can take the example of Sarath Babu, Food King. All right, you can give n number of examples. Those who could be able to create the empire, Narayan Murthy, Sudha Murthy, they could be able to create the empire of the world, wealth. From zero, they have become hero. Zero hunger, because it is the self-creation. Because there are faults, there are lacunas, there are malfunctions in our policy programs for which people are dying. So that, because my question is that the country should select, a country should make choice of whether the country would go for agriculture or tourism. I must say, Maldives has chosen tourism as the backbone of the economy of the country. Similarly, almost all the island countries, we talk about Mauritius, Seychelles, Haiti, or the countries in the Central Americas, the West Indies, either Cuba. Similarly, you take the example of Maldives. Similarly, Sri Lanka. You take the example of the Malaysia, Singapore. You take the example of Bangkok or Hong Kong, whatever. Taiwan. So these are all tiny countries, and they are thriving on tourism. And tourism could eliminate hunger, could eliminate poverty. And tourism has proved that poverty can be eliminated, hunger can be eliminated. There are n number of examples. You take the example of UNDP, United Nations Development Program, which has started the program called endogenous tourism in India. They identified several villages which are very unique in nature, in textile, in handloom, and in art and crafts, because there are some unique or distinct attractions for which tourists can visit and stay long. So when tourists will go there, because sustainable development goals are the goals for all the sectors. So if I start presenting from the perspective of the tourism, all the 17 goals, I must say tourism can be a best choice, not a better choice. Tourism can be the best choice if a country would embrace through policy and program. Poverty can be alleviated, hunger can go, and people would be able to get wonderful health facilities and well-being. Because you take the example of the Khajuraho. Nothing was there in Khajuraho in 1952. It was a dry place because wild animals, including leopards, they used to live inside the Khajuraho temple. Even Ajanta Ellora also in Aurangabad. Khandagiri Udayagiri caves in Bhubaneswar, in the outskirts of the Bhubaneswar. Yeah. So because of the tourism, because of the development of tourism in the sense, because tourists started visiting the place, they started staying in the hotel, they started paying the entry fees, they started hiring the guide, they started buying the local handicrafts, and hotels started providing them the food and other recreational facilities which are locally sourced, so that the local economy started getting activated, and the people depending on the local economy start getting the income and employment, so that the agriculture, horticulture, pisciculture, honeyculture, sericulture, all those small sectors, you can say dairy, poultry, all sectors will get activated, and that is called the downward stream, multiplier effect, spillover effect, multiplier, you can say percolation effect. So spin-off effect, whatever effect you may say. So this is the way the health facilities can be provided. Now, a tourist will feel to stay in Khajuraho because in the emergency, the tourists can be taken to hospitals in Khajuraho. Otherwise, the five-star hotel will never come there. That was one of the criteria, parameters for which many five-star hotel except Taj, they did not invest in the hotel sector, for which ITDC came to the investment in 1965 as a public sector undertaking to create confidence of the tourist and confidence of the private sector that yes, five-star hotels can survive, can thrive, can earn profit. So private sector started investing because certainly after 1991-92. Quality education, many poor people, poor boys, poor children in and around the destination. You take the example of Cambodia, Angkor Wat temples. This is a perfect example, you know, the artisans living in and around the Angkor Wat temple in Cambodia. Many of them are educated. You take the Raghurajpur village on the outskirts of the Puri. No, because you may not ask about other consequences. Because quality of education, I don't say that they should leave their own traditional knowledge or traditional art and craft knowledge. Because if they start getting the education, they look for a job, corporate job or bureaucratic job. If they look for a corporate and bureaucratic job, then certainly the tradition of the art and craft will die down. That is a different discussion because I'm presenting in this perspective. Education means the person will have ability to take their own decisions. The person can be able to find which is wrong, which is right. I'm trying to present in that perspective. And they can value the importance of the tourism in the villages. I'm trying to present the education in that perspective. And quality, gender quality, equality and gender quality. Because there must not be difference between male and female. Because if you go to all artisan villages or craft villages, there it is a collective work. Each family member contributes in a small way to prepare a beautiful artifacts to be sold to the tourist. Clean water and sanitation. Many of the rural tourism villages in India, they are facing the problem of getting clean water, drinking water, potable drinking water, purified drinking water. So now tourism projects could be able to solve it. And you take the example of Kerala. You know, Kerala, that is a place called Kutumbasri. That is a project through which the artisans are getting the wonderful benefits out of this project. Affordable clean energy. Because tourism can bring in a lot of renewable energy sources, whether it's biogas or solar. So alternative energy can be explored. Decent work, economic growth, all those things which may take little longer time, but these are all self-explanatory. But let me give you a little more time on this. Many of my friends, teaching friends, must be knowing about this gentleman. I have made a wonderful relationship with him after meeting in Chennai once, and I request all of you to invite him. And he's an avid traveler. He loves to travel. Now he's a true responsible entrepreneur. Because the word responsible entrepreneur, adjective is used before the entrepreneur is, entrepreneurs, all can be entrepreneurs. The primary objective of the entrepreneur is to create wealth for himself or for the nation. For this gentleman, at the age of 62, has given up the mission of making profit, because he's making profit. I don't think that he's running the Indigo hotel without profit. He is a Paka businessman. He's a typical businessman, but he is contributing significant chunk of his profit towards the preservation of the lost heritage in Kumbhakonam. There is a hotel called Swami Malai, a hotel under the group of the Indigo Leisure Hotel, and is a luxury heritage hotel. This Steve Borgia, who was associated with the Timeshare Group, Stirling Resort, Stirling Group, he pioneered the concept of timeshare in India. He was associated with that in the beginning. Then he started investing in his own sector. He's a very popular speaker. I must admire his benevolence and magnanimity for the tourism. How profit can be maximized or profit can be made. I should not use the word maximization. Profit can be made by sending the guest happy and by seeing the smile on the face of the community and by ensuring the functioning of the ecosystem of the place, because ecosystem includes many things. One of the elements of the ecosystem is the biodiversity and cultural diversity of the place. He is contributing to the conservation of the animals and conservation of the lost art and architecture, sculptures of the ruined temples. And now he has given lives to many of the ruined objects which were scattered in and around this Swamimalai in Kumbakonam. This is the best example of the responsible travel, the responsible entrepreneur of Mr. Steve Borgia. Sorry. So, because the next 15-20 minutes, let me tell you, sustainable tourism development needs responsible. Patu Keswani, many of you must be knowing, the founder of the Lemon Tree Hotel. He is truly a responsible leader, like Steve Borgia, because he is one who started appointing the differently abled people to serve in the hotel, and because which is completely out of the box thinking. Being an IITian, being an IIM graduate, having served in Tata Administrative Service, TAS, that is a service called Tata Administrative Service. He left the Tata Administrative Service and started investing in the hotel sector. Am I right? And he is one who has employed more than 150 or 200 odd number of differently abled staff members, and that speaks about so much about the responsibility of the Patu Keswani. That is called sustainable development. That is called sustainable development, because this development is going to be inclusive. This development does not take care of only one section of the people. This development targets the people, those who are not touched upon or not included. Visionary J.D. Tata, M.S. Oberoi, Thomas Cook, they are visionary. They could visualize the expansion of tourism, excellence in the tourism. Because J.D. Tata, I must say his father, Nasuranji Tata, who started the hotel in 1983, followed by J.D. Tata, expanded the hotel. M.S. Oberoi worked in as a clerk, but created a big empire. And Thomas Cook, who was selling flowers with his mother, who was a cabinet maker. He was assisting his parents to prepare the radio cabinet. But how he could be able to contribute to the world, travel voucher, travel coupon, because the vision is also required. Because a leader who has to have a vision, then they can foresee what will be there in the future. When a leader is able to see the future, certainly the development will not be lopsided. It will continue actionably. Because Deep Karla, the founder of the MakeMyTree.com, now he is also one of the founder of the Ashoka University in the outskirts of Delhi. He is also an IIT and IIM graduate. And he could address the need of the online buyers, online travel buyers. There are many social leaders, Jogesh Chandra Deveshwar, ITC promoter, I must not say founder, promoter, because ITC could get a big facelift. ITC could get a big brand under his leadership. Unfortunately, he is no more. This is the contribution of Keswani, the Lemon Tree Hotel. And if you look at the sustainable development, it looks at the three important parameters, aspects. You put in the corner of the pyramid, the people, planet, and profit. So, because no, the profit will be on the top, people and planet will be in the bottom. Because profit is not the only objective. Therefore, I put the profit in the end. People and planet are the second. This is the photograph of Patu Keshwani. Let me take you to the ITC Ichopal Hotel. I may take 5 minutes time, Rajdeep. So then you can, Rajdeep, hello.
Sir, please carry on, sir.
So I can continue till 4 o'clock, is fine?
Yes, sir, no problem, sir.
Thank you. So this is the example of the ITC creating livelihoods and environmental capacity for the villagers. They started experimenting in Indore. No, because I am very fortunate. This is not that I am sharing this slide with you just for the sake of presentation and interaction, because I got some experience of visiting the ITC Ichopal on the outskirts of the Indore when I was pursuing my FDP in IIM Indore in 2010. Because all of you know, when we look at the ITC sells the tobaccos. Because this is the way ITC has earned their name, whether a good name or bad name. So, but ITC has earned the name. But today, ITC could redefine the company's profile by producing the products which are beneficial to the health of the people and beneficial to the livelihood of the people, those who are at the downstream. So ITC Ichopal concept, it is nothing but ITC is giving a technological platform to the farmers through which they can be able to, they can get updated themselves about the market price, about the climate, about the use of the fertilizers, about the use of the high yielding variety seeds, and at the same time, how they can get fair price for their own products. And they should not be cheated, because why I'm trying to give the example to all of you is because this is not directly related to tourism, but is related to tourism. This is about the Ichopal, because they have created an ecosystem, and Ichopal has invested in Ichopal ecosystem afforestation program, watershed development. They have done in Telangana, they have done in Maharashtra, they have done all those projects like livestock development project, women empowerment project, primary education project. This is not from the 2% of the corporate social responsibility fund. This is out of the company's policy and programs, how they can get connected with those who contribute primarily to the growth and development of the ITC. That is nothing but the farmers in the downstream. So what is the product outcome? Because in the end of the day, because every responsible entrepreneur should reduce the carbon footprints. How the carbon footprints can be, carbon dioxide can be reduced, how carbon can be neutralized, and because they do the neutralization by doing a lot of afforestation program, and they do the afforestation program by creating a lot of man days. So they have, because they have put it in the website when I collected it, and they are 50% of the energy they get from wind and solar energy, and almost all of their hotels, the ITC Chola Hotel in Chennai, it is a 100% green hotel. So they have their own energy, they recycle the water, they treat the water and recycle and they use it, and they create a zero waste, all those things, for which they have got the LEED Platinum rated hotel. So this is the title Survive. revive and reimagine. Because if you see the 2020 report of the ITC sustainability report, they are right, survive, revive and reimagine. Because because when we lay emphasis on the sustainable development, the development must include, must comprise how to survive, how to revive, how to reimagine. Because survive, because when the situation becomes very bad, the resources are there are shortages of resources, resource crunch is there, how to survive. And there are places the how resources can be revived, how water level can be increased, how afforestation can be increased, so that deforestation can be converted into afforestation. So more green cover can be done. Reimagine, because imagine is okay, because we imagine something that is called visualizing beyond that. All right. So if you reimagine that, let us redo, re-introspect, then certainly, because they have been doing for last 18 years. And this is about the Taj Hotel that I have already told you. What are the contributions for the sustainable development? Because they are they're giving back to society. They are not giving back to society only 2% of their total profit. At the same time, they do vocational skill development programs for the society or for the community around which the Tata projects are there, mostly the hotels. Partnership to preserve, promote indigenous heritage, culture, art and handicrafts. Disaster relief and rehabilitation programs. They have done a lot of projects. This is the visionary leader, J.R.D. Tata, who pioneered the civil aviation and who was the CMD of the civil aviation, Air India Indian Airlines, from 1952 to 77, and 52 when Indian Airlines and Air India was nationalized. And may God know, or that the Air India may come again to the fold of the Tata, the way things are happening. So therefore, if you see the slide here, they have displayed in their website that how much emissions and how they are going to reuse water, how they are going to invest on the efficient infrastructure, energy conservation, reduction of waste. I have visited the leather factory of the Tata in Devas, Indore, because it is the most pollutant factory if you go. So there they know they have sewage treatment plant, and they reuse the water 3 to 4 times. You will be surprised to know. This is the Ratan Tata, who has created the Taj Public Service Welfare Trust after 2007 terrorist attack in Taj hotels. They have got Taj Public Service Welfare Trust. Okay, so this is about MS Oberoi. Because I thought because hospitality business, I should link tourism and hospitality. What I have given the example of the Lemon Tree Hotel and the Taj Hotel, because they can only survive in the business as long as they contribute to the ecology and environment. Now the customers, the tourists and the guests, they're extremely conscious of choosing a property, choosing a hotel which is giving back to the society, which is giving back to the ecology and environment, and they are certified. They have received the number of awards. This is the way the Lemon Tree Hotel has got maximum occupancy rate, because the Lemon Tree has ensured 2 important objectives. One is called the appointing the differently able people and making them skilled and providing them services in a better way. Other thing, the conservation of energy without depending on others, and the solid waste management. Because these are the ways we can reduce the impact, negative impacts on the ecology, and positive impacts can be maximized. And that is the objective of sustainable development. Then the development can continue. Tourism can contribute to the sustainable development because hotel must not be there for 30 years or 40 years. Because you just see the hotel in Mumbai, which has almost completed 100 years, and many hotels which are owned by Oberoi Group or Taj Group, they have exceeded the 50 or 60 years in different parts of the country and world, and they are in existence. They exist because they contribute to the society, contribute to the environment, contribute to the ecology. This is the way sustainable development can be possible. And this is the Dhirubhai Ambani. I have given the example because the Ambani group has also taken the share of the Oberoi Hotel. Now almost they are the major shareholder of the company of the Oberoi Hotel. I love Ramdev because I practice yoga and I start my presentation with the Gayatri Mantra and I end my presentation with the Purnamada. I'll do that because this is the way you can ensure your life management. Because if you individually manage your life, probably you can contribute to the society, because you will be a healthy person. When you are a healthy person, you can contribute to the nation building or society or building of the new society, new generations. When you are unhealthy, you cannot do it. So that we should tourism should contribute to the, tourism is a boon and tourism is a bane. Tourism can be a boon when tourism contributes positively. Tourism is a bane when tourism becomes a killer object. Tourism destroys the environment. So therefore, we should strike a balance between the development and destruction. Hopefully, tourism can act as a moderator between the development and destructions, and many responsible tourism, which is a part of sustainable development, sustainable tourism development. Now almost all the tourism destinations, regardless of the size and capacity, regardless of the attractions, regardless of the appeal, regardless of the beauty, each destination, all the service providers or the operators of services, they have adopted the best sustainable practices in adherence to the you may say United Nations Development Program, or you may say in adherence to the guidelines prepared by the Minister of Environment and Forest. And because the tourism industry can thrive, as long as the destination thrives, then the property would thrive. Because if the destination will die for want of water, for want of good air, for want of land, for want of good people, because destination should also not create criminals. Safety is also a part of the sustainable development. All right. So we want a peaceful, happy destination, which are the sole objective of the sustainable development. Let me conclude my presentation by chanting Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat no Midachyate Purnesu Punyamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Santi Santi Santi. Because let the whole world be peace, let the whole world be happy, let the whole world be prosperous, let the whole world live together, stay together, grow together. This is the whole sole objective of sustainable development. Thank you very much. Thank you, Himanshu-ji, for
Thank you, sir. It was an insightful lecturer. Sir, there are a lot of compliments are there. I cannot read all, but some.
But I love to take questions.
Sir, there are a lot of questions, but I have selected 3-4 questions. The first question raised by Bhaswati Bhattacharya. She is a very regular and very active participant in our AICT Atal FDP.
It should be active and regular, otherwise you cannot get the certificate.
Sir. She is having one question. In India, such a populous country India is, can we really prioritize tourism over agriculture in our country?
See, it's a good question. Tourism is not a substitute to agriculture. Tourism is a supplement to agriculture. Tourism cannot replace agriculture. Tourism is a substitute to agriculture, which I cannot say, because India cannot afford to do that, because our 2/3 of the population, or you can say 2/3 of the contribution also to the GDP is from agriculture, because agriculture contributes massively to the tourism. The existence of the tourism largely depends on the production of the production from the agriculture sector. Tourists cannot visit a destination where the egg is not available, milk is not available, fruits is not available, vegetable is not available. I don't think so. But the priority, the question is wonderful. The government is not giving what I'm trying to tell you, because my answer is government must not give priority to the tourism at the cost of agriculture. Government must give priority to the tourism what it deserves. A country which is 5,000 years old, a country which has everything to offer to the tourist, a country which is endowed with all regions for all seasons, a country which is gifted with everything which is there under the sky. The country which has already proved to detain the tourists for 3 weeks. The country which is known for holding the tourists for 21 days. Why the country is unable to attract tourists more than 1%? Because there is a I must not say stepmotherly attitude towards the tourism, and government has clearly understood, because tourism is not going to give them the vote bank. It's not a vote bank sector. Am I right? Because tourism is always considered a luxury industry. People, those who have money, they can travel. And there is a disconnect between tourism and a community development. Because if somebody will go to Mahabalipuram, because the next person who lives next to the premises of the Mahabalipuram Ratha temple must not be knowing how I am getting benefited from the tourism. So the government must give priority what the sector deserves. I must not say it should give priority over the agriculture, because agriculture is the backbone of the economy, because India is a rural country. So tourism is also a sector which can be given utmost priority in the policy and programs. And thanks to this government, because this government has kept 1 T out of 10 Ts, and the Niti Aayog is working very progressively towards the tourism. Now tourism sector will certainly get a new facelift, and both should grow together. Because if you take the example of Maldives, because Maldives has no scope for agricultural development except fishery and tourism. Clear? So there the government has to give top priority to the thrust to the tourism. Am I right? But here government should give priority to the tourism and agriculture. Because what happens here, because the tourism as a sector is given the least priority when you look at, because tourism is not getting a cabinet rank. All right, the minister which is in charge of tourism, which is in charge of several sectors, you did not beat about the bush. You don't roam around the world. You just please get back to Kerala. Am I right? The whole society is ready for tourism. The whole economy system is ready for tourism. The social system is ready for tourism, to embrace tourism, welcome tourism. That is why tourism is thriving. 30% of the economy of the tourist. That is not the issue, Himanshu ji. What I'm trying to tell, that how the economy can stop the leakages. Because what we earn from the tourism, let it be absorbed in our economy system. Let it not get leaked to the other system. So, but fortunately, India has come to a position where leakages can be minimized.
Yes.
Am I right? I think I have answered. Thank you. Next.
Madam already written in chat box. I understand, sir. Thank you, sir. And now I want to put another question by Avinash Anand. Why is sustainable development so often associated with protecting the environment only?
So, what is Avinash, no?
Yes, sir. Avinash Anand.
Okay. So, Avinash Anandji, I am not responding to you because I must thank you that you have asked a question through which all the other participants will also come to know, and I'll also give a little strength to my mind to answer it. sustainable development is related to environment. You tell me what is not there in the environment? Water is not there in part of the environment. Human being is not part of the environment. Tree is not part of the environment. You tell me what is not there in the environment. What is there in the environment? Everything is there. If you talk about ecology, then I must agree. Why sustainable development is it tilted towards ecology? Because ecology is not part of ecology does not encompass everything. It encompasses the flora, fauna, biodiversity, biotic, abiotic factors. But environment includes, you know, your urban environment, your rural environment, your semi-urban environment, the tourism destination environment, because where the consumers, buyers, producers, everything is producers, all are involved. So development is related to the environment because environment should not, what is there in the environment should not be damaged, should not be affected negatively, should not be exhausted completely, and it should be preserved for the future. So because development should not be destructive in nature, because environment does not have the capacity to absorb the destructions. Because, you know, when the Lord Shiva, who is known for destroyer, who destroys the world, who destroyed the world for recreating it. Therefore, Lord Brahma started creating the world. Lord Vishnu maintains the world. So therefore, sustainable development, people plant and profit, because it is related to people, it is related to plant, and it is related to profit. Because if there will be a profit, ecology can be, environment can be maintained. You take the example of national park and wildlife sanctuaries. Because tourism was untouchable. Tourism activities were not permitted to take place inside the national park and wildlife sanctuaries. After 2002 International Year of Ecotourism, when all the countries they signed were the signatories of the ecotourism principles and guidelines, you know, all the countries started allowing the tourism activity to take place in the name of ecotourism. So therefore, that is called sustainable form of development, where community is participating and contributing to the ecology, where trees are not uprooted, water is not getting exhausted, and water is getting recharged. So therefore, sustainable development must always, it has no choice. It has no choice. Sustainable development will always connected with the environment. Environment is always dependent on the sustainable development, because both are complementary to each other. They are not competitive. Thank you.
Sir, I think I should take another question by Anuj Bhattacharya. How do you calculate and analyze the carrying capacity of a new tourism destination so that the tourism can be sustainable at the place?
Okay. What is his name? Manoj?
Anuj Bhattacharya.
Anuj Bhattacharya. Thank you. So, actually, generally the resource person becomes very ambitious to bring so many things, so that this is also a greedy thing. Greedy is against the sustainable development. So always I had a feeling that let me bring so many things to the knowledge of the participants. That is my duties, and that is my duty and responsibility that entrusted on me. But you know, carrying capacity is a significant component of, or element or parameter of sustainable development. It is not the carrying capacity which is related to tourism. Carrying capacity is earlier calculated in the in case of the forest and wildlife. Am I right? Because in the United Nations in 18th century, they started calculating the carrying capacity of the animal in a forest. So we started embracing carrying capacity in tourism, because we have a problem of the sustainable development. Physical carrying capacity, social carrying capacity, psychological or perceptual carrying capacity. Nowadays we are telling aesthetic carrying capacity, ecological carrying capacity. Because you know, we call the maximum carrying capacity. We also limits to acceptable change, LAC. Limits to acceptable change. That is a concept which I've already told you. And environmental impact analysis, and other called tourist impact management analysis. These are some of the models which have been evolved or which have been formulated, developed to uh, assess, evaluate, and measure the capacity of a destination as far as the resource, as far as the available resources is concerned. It is nothing but it is a, if you talk about economic sense, it's a question of production and consumption. If you look at demand and supply, similar sense, carrying capacity is calculated by taking the capacity of the destinations, resources, and the footfalls of the tourist. So, because if a hotel has a capacity of 100 guests, if 150 guests will be there, so hotel will provide the extra beds, and hotel will provide them to go to the conference halls or some other smaller meeting rooms. So there, there will be a crowd in the swimming pool because 50 guests will be more. So each destination has some ceiling beyond which tourists should not be allowed. That is why I told you, no destination in the world which is known for mass tourism, including Taj Mahal, Ajanta Ellora, Hampi Badami Potadakal, the Sun Temple at Konark, Sanchi, Khajuraho, Agra Fort, or you take the example of, because Tirupati is very organized, right? They are not mass tourism destination, but things are very organized there. So what I'm trying to tell you, that no destination can be prepared to open the gates or open the windows for the tourist in any time after the pandemic. Now tourists also would not try to visit. Now the question of off season and lean season and the peak season would go. Now tourists would start traveling around the year. They look for, they wish to visit the time in a time when tourists will not be there, regardless of their satisfaction. So therefore, carrying capacity is calculated depending on the physical carrying capacity. You take of the space available and footfalls. Social carrying capacity, if you talk about, because how much impact the society, how much society can observe the impact of the tourism, because social changes. Similarly, this the perceptual carrying capacity, the psychological carrying capacity, because sometimes the destination is getting distorted by the skies. Because you take the example of Ooty today, the Udaga Mandalam. No, the beauty of the Ooty is lost because of the skyscrapers. So many apartments. So you may not be able to take the natural photograph of the Ooty. And you may not enjoy the Ooty. Wherever you go, you see the people will be around there. You may ask me a question. Yes, because that is contrary to the tourism business, how tourism can thrive, how operators will get the room to sell, how the transporter operator will get the business to book the vehicles. Because I'm not looking at that perspective. I'm looking at the perspective of the capacity of a destination physically, socially, economic carrying capacity is also there. Because it may lead to inflation sometimes, because each destination has a chance of facing the inflation, property price hike, the purchasing power will be more, and the tourist, the local community may not be able to afford it, because many local community may not get the job in the tourism industry because it requires skilled laborers, skilled workers, and many middle level and high level management employees, they are from the outsiders. They are hired from the other cities, other places. So local community member, local youths, they don't get job directly there, lucrative dignified job. So there is a missing link. So therefore, that is called social carrying capacity. So carrying capacity is an ultimate theory when you talk about sustainable development. I must thank Anuj for bringing this concept to be discussed. I'm sorry I could not bring it in the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
And the United Nations World Tourism Organization has clearly defined this carrying capacity of a destination, the destination which should not exceed from the beyond capacity. At the same time, the tourist should not be dissatisfied, because we look at the dissatisfaction of the tourist. If a tourist leaves the destination dissatisfied, you know what will be the consequences. You never expect the tourist to recommend anyone to visit it again. Thank you, Himanshu.
Sir, thank you, sir. as every time, wherever I have attended your session, lecture session, always your session is full of data, informations. It's just like a tour in national, international tour. And really, this lecture was very insightful, very informative, and in future, these all things will motivate to the faculty members who are attending this Atal AICT faculty development program, and these things will be transferred from teachers to the students. So, thank you, sir, on behalf of Department of Tourism.
Before you conclude, I request you please, in the end of the program,
Yes, sir.
you please collect the research topics from the participants. Which are the research areas with regard to entrepreneurship and tourism they are going to carry out? Because after listening all the presentations, so they should come out with some the emerging research areas with regard to entrepreneurship and tourism, sustainable development, like that. So that you can communicate to AICT that these are some of the outcomes of the FDP, that these are the future research areas that the country can take up or the academia can take up. I must thank you for giving me opportunity. I must thank all the participants for listening patiently. Thank you.
Sir, on behalf of Department of Tourism and Hospitality Management, Mizoram University, thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation and delivering this insightful lecture. And in future also, we'll be seeking your guidance and cooperation for our department, sir. Thank you, sir.